Liberty lovers, and welcome to the Liberty Mike podcast, broadcasting from an undisclosed location in the heart of Dixie. I am Michael, and I am here with Liberty Larry.
How's it going?
I'm doing all right. How are you?
Pretty good.
Pretty
I made it here.
That's good. I don't know how much ice you still hit. Like, there's a little patch like right in at the entrance to my.
There's still a pretty good bit on my way here. Like I say,
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to be careful on the way home tonight. I mean, it's not
That's surprising because
It's
it
not-
got up to 50-something degrees today.
well, and that's exactly. I mean, it's melting off, but there was still some pretty substantial pieces on the way here,
Yeah.
or areas, I should say. It's just not the sun's not touching it. It's anywhere the sun
Yeah.
doesn't touch.
Which seems to be the east-west roads, which I think is
Yeah.
non-intuitive.
Yeah.
Since the sun, rises in the east and sets in the west, you would think that the east-west roads would be hit, but the sun's so far north this time of year.
I was going to say the angles are so weird right now
Yeah.
because like the front of my store doesn't get any sunlight this time of year.
Mm-hmm.
So like, I mean, I like got out there and scraped it and shoveled it yesterday, but everywhere the corners I shoveled it into are piled up.
Yeah. Well, it is maybe ironic that that right after the podcast episode where I made a case debunking the popular narrative about climate change that Daphne would get a once-in-a-lifetime snowstorm.
It truly was incredible. Like I say, I got to say this for you folks up north, you can keep it.
Oh, I loved it.
Oh, no, screw that.
I loved it. It was like real snow. Usually when we get snow here, first off,
It's more like sleet.
yeah, exactly. It's just really frozen rain.
Yeah.
And that sucks. I mean,
it's
like, that's
horrible.
definitely no fun. But this was like powdery, fluffy.
So I can say I've experienced it. I've always heard about the fluffy snow and the powder. And I always kind of had a picture in my head of what that would be like.
Yeah.
I can say I've experienced it now. Like
Yeah.
I say, I mean, this was the powder. I mean, I've heard people from up north say this is the powderiest they've ever seen.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the first day, it was really hard to make a snowball.
Yeah, it was exactly, or a snowman or anything. It just
Yeah.
wouldn't stick.
Yeah.
It was just so soft.
Well, I don't think I've ever seen it snow with the sun up here either.
It really was an event because, like you say, it came through during the day. Like we got to watch it happen. Like it was pretty incredible.
Oh, yeah, it was pretty awesome. Yeah. I enjoyed it right up until the power went out and my water didn't work.
Yeah. So those were my fears throughout. You experienced two of my three fears coming through this. The third being the heater going out.
Well, the truth was that I can say it was all fun and games until the power went out and the water was off. But the truth is that it was all fun and games after that too, because there was nothing else to do.
Right. Yeah. I might as well go play in the snow. Right.
Yeah, I just had to be more careful because I couldn't come in and throw my clothes in the dryer and take a hot shower. I'd have to like just come in and get naked, leave a wet pile on the floor, and wrap myself up in a blanket. And that's not quite the same thing.
No, it's not. My house was a mess with the kids coming in and out playing in it. I mean, there was just, I'm putting towels down and trying to mitigate, and there's just nothing you can do, man.
I thought it was great.
It was fun. Like I say, I complained, but it was fun for one time. Like, I don't
Yeah.
want to deal with this.
I want to point out that that suddenly Liberty Larry was on board with the whole climate change narrative right after this happened. He's like, "Is this going to happen over and over again now? What have we done to this planet?" I'm like, "Oh, gee,
I'm not,
come
I'm
on,
not,
man."
I'm just saying, you don't know. I mean, if we have this happen again this season, like, what are you going to be saying then?
Well, there's
it's
no
a
way.
fluke?
There's no way it happens again this season.
Oh, I wouldn't count my eggs. They're already projecting another one. So
Yeah, I don't know.
The
It's-
long-term forward models, which are never accurate, but they are predicting another Arctic blast.
Yeah. Well, it is a confluence of factors. It's unusual. Like we
It
got
takes
those
a lot
Arctic
for that to
blasts last
happen.
year,
We did.
and the year before.
Yeah.
We didn't get any snow.
Yeah.
Like that it coinciding with also I guess is a low pressure system.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's just weird. It is a strange thing for it to happen, and it was pretty incredible. But it doesn't change my opinion. It's
Oh, well, no, it doesn't. The truth is, it doesn't change mine. The truth is climate change. My point I was making when I said that was climate does change.
Oh yeah.
So
Well,
I'm just
that's
saying
not the
we're
argument
not-
that we were making
No,
last week. I
well,
wasn't saying
that's
the
my
climate
point.
doesn't
I'm not
change.
saying that. But the point is we're not changing it. But
Yeah.
the climate does change on its own, and who knows? Maybe this is something that's going to happen every now and then.
Well, I'll tell you honestly, I think that they're pushing the climate change narrative so hard and trying to enact all these various mitigation methods or whatever. I think we're going to see a drop in average annual temperature across the planet over the next few decades.
Yeah.
Not significant, but I think that we're going to see a drop in temperature over the next few decades. Now, this is just me.
And then all the experts will be taking the victory lap.
Exactly. They're trying to do all this now so they can say, see, we fixed it.
Yeah, right. Man, propaganda is a crazy thing. Mm-hmm. It's funny how all that works.
So just know that I think it's like the height of arrogance to believe that we have that much control over the climate on this planet.
Because the climate has changed for the entire life of the planet. Like just like everything else in life, nothing stays the same.
Yeah.
It's the same for the planet.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't stay the same all the time.
Even tax rates change.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
So but it is kind of funny that like right after we were talking about that, we
Get
this.
Snowmageddon.
Yeah. I mean, more snow fell on Tuesday this week than has fallen on this area my entire life
Yeah.
up until now.
Yeah. By a pretty good stretch, I think.
I don't know how.
Depending on how you measure snow, like I say, or what you count as snow. Because like the sleet storm we had in 2014 was a lot of sleet, but it wasn't snow.
Yeah.
A lot of people down here called it that, but that's not what it was.
I don't even remember that.
Oh, I remember that. It was a nightmare too. And that was a true nightmare where there was really no fun involved. It wasn't like you could just like go out and play in it.
Yeah. Yeah. I did go out while it was snowing though,
Yeah.
a couple of times.
Oh, yeah.
Took some video. Just like I said, I don't think it's ever happened during daylight hours before.
Yeah.
So I wanted to get it. I mean, I was saying to a friend, I was like, usually this is a travel privilege for me. But actually, I saw more snow fall on Tuesday than I saw last year when I spent 10 days in the Swiss Alps during the winter.
Wow.
So
That's crazy.
it was weird. It was definitely weird, but it was neat. I really enjoyed it, and I'd like to see more of it. People around here need to learn how to drive on icy roads.
We're not, speaking for people around here, we're not going to do that.
Okay, well,
We can barely drive when the sun's out.
that's true. It rains constantly here, and people cannot drive in the rain.
My favorite is when they're driving around with the flashers on.
Oh, yeah, that drives me nuts. Like, what's your emergency? Water's falling from the sky? That happens like 250 days out of the year.
Exactly.
Well.
Oh, I love it.
In the meantime, Trump is now our president.
Man, and he has been a busy man.
Yeah.
I would just like to say from the outset of this podcast that we're not going to cover everything he's done the past,
Oh, not even close.
3 days?
I haven't
4
had time
days?
to read much about it, honestly, either.
Well, he's done so much. I mean, it's wild, man. He's definitely hitting the ground running.
Well, before leaving office, Joe Biden issued a bunch of pardons.
Yeah.
And they issued these pardons with now remember, in 2020 and a lot of times since then, Biden has denied that he would issue a bunch of pardons, preemptive pardons he thought were going to be the cause of the fall of our democracy or our republic or whatever he said at the time.
Which I don't necessarily disagree with. I have a real problem with premature pardons.
Yeah, premature pardons.
I think that's fair. I think that fits.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, I guess. I'm not going to discuss the semantics of that word here, I guess. Right. Anyway, and they kind of justified it now by saying that Trump was going to weaponize the justice system against his political enemies.
Yeah, because that would be the first time that's ever happened.
Yeah, sarcasm doesn't go well on a podcast.
Well,
It's audio.
So-
they can't see you rolling your eyes while you say that.
That's fair.
So, which obviously is what's been going on for the last 4 years.
Yeah, exactly.
And so they were saying that Trump would weaponize the justice system against his political enemies, and that justified Biden's use of the president's pardon power to issue blanket pardons to a number of public servants, quote unquote,
Yeah.
who all they do is they sacrifice their whole lives for all the rest of us. They don't gain anything out of this, right?
While making millions of dollars.
Mm-hmm. But it included Mark Milley.
Yeah.
Now, these pardons go back to like 2014.
Yeah.
Mark Milley, I think, is a particularly egregious one because he was in Trump's previous administration and claimed to be withholding military info from Trump while Trump was the commander-in-chief. And our Constitution is set up to give control of the military to civilian leadership, not to military leadership. And so he just kind of turned that upside down, saying, well, the military, we're going to do what we're going to do, and whatever the civilian leader says, we're just going to ignore and lie to him about what we're doing.
Yeah.
Now, I think that's particularly egregious.
Yeah.
I think that's treason.
Yeah. I mean, by definition, if I'm not mistaken.
I don't know that he's aiding enemies of the United States, and that may be an important part of the definition, but it is certainly a rejection of his oath to the Constitution.
Yeah.
And so I think that he should be able to be liable for this. And then Anthony Fauci.
Yes.
Dr. Anthony Fauci, 2014 to the present.
Which means we got to go back to the 80s to get him.
Yeah. Which we might be able to do.
I was going to say, I think there's something there.
I think so too, except then you've got statute of limitations issues.
That's fair.
But and that's part of the reason for going back to 2014. Almost anything that you could actually bring charges against them before that period is
hidden statutes.
Yeah. So, but it just so turns out, by the way, that the funding pause for gain of function research was instituted in October of 2014.
Oh, really?
So during the time that he may have been using his position to fund gain of function research against the funding pause, the moratorium, would be covered by this pardon.
Yeah.
Liz Cheney, but we're going to talk about J6 a fair bit because it's actually
of Trump's pardons.
so Biden pardoned the entire J6 committee.
Yeah.
Preemptively. Now,
so I just got a question as far as with the preemptive pardons. So he can actually preemptively pardon somebody and not name what it is.
Yeah.
I mean, that's
all
wild.
crimes committed during this period of time.
That is wild. Like, even if you're going to give somebody the power to do that, which I have a problem with, it seems like you would have to name the crimes.
Yeah. Well, here's an interesting bit of the jurisprudence around pardons.
Okay.
There's two parts to a pardon.
Yeah.
One is the issuing of the pardon by the president, and then the person who the pardon is issued to can choose to accept the pardon or not.
Oh, yeah.
All right. Now, the jurisprudence says that if they accept the pardon, they're admitting guilt.
Oh, okay.
None of these people rejected their pardons.
Well, yeah, exactly.
And it came up some time ago, and I can't remember exactly the case, but the guy was like, I don't feel like I did anything wrong, and so I'm not accepting a pardon. I'm going to fight this the right way through the legal system.
Well, I also heard that they can't plead the fifth anymore either.
That's another interesting aspect of it. So if they're drawn in front of Senate committees or House committees and told to answer questions, they can't plead the fifth to refuse to answer the questions.
Yeah. Now they just have to lie like everybody else, right?
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly right. I just find this interesting because now Biden said in the issuance of the pardon that it wasn't an admission of any wrongdoing by any of these people, but the truth is that the jurisprudence says that if they accept the pardon, they are admitting wrongdoing.
Yeah. Which, yeah. Just this funny little coincidence there.
Yeah. And I don't know. It's just weird that he would make such an issue out of it being tantamount to the fall of the republic and then doing this.
It's classic Joe Biden, though.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, this guy has like done this throughout his career. You know,
Well, that's true too.
Just hypocrisy at every turn.
Mm-hmm. I don't think that he's really controlling himself now, though. I think some people put a bunch of stuff in front of him to sign and then said, "Here, read these words in front of a camera."
Oh, yeah. Well, at this point, that's all it is.
Huh? Okay.
Well, and it's funny because I don't remember. It was somebody that had accepted one of these. It may have been Milley. I don't remember who it was. Was on one of the news stations. They were interviewing him or whatever. And like just came out and said, was like, well, I didn't ask for this pardon, but I did accept it. And all I could think as the way he was saying it, I was like, dude, you asked for this. Like, I fully believe just by the way you're making this statement that you were like beating on the door, give me this so I can sleep well at night in the future.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I mean, not being able to prosecute people like Anthony Fauci really bothers me. But at the same time, I do like the idea of putting them in front of a committee and being in a position where they're not allowed to ignore questions.
Yeah, and the truth is, as I say, they can just go up there and lie, which is what they'll do.
Yeah.
But they do open themselves up to perjure themselves then.
Yeah.
Which I guess that would fall under a crime that hasn't been pardoned.
Yeah, that one hadn't been committed yet.
Exactly.
Yeah. So they either tell the truth or they risk prosecution.
Prosecution, exactly. Yeah. So yeah, how much do you want to jeopardize your freedom for the propaganda?
Mm-hmm. This is kind of an interesting situation. We'll see what comes of it.
I don't expect much to be truthful with you.
Yeah, but. I mean, the idea that Trump was going to use the justice system to prosecute his political enemies, first off, it's so hypocritical because that is what the Democrats have been doing and making it plain that they were prosecuting him because they wanted to make sure that he did not take office again.
Exactly.
And at the same time, Trump didn't do that during his first term.
Well, that was what I was fixing to say. I mean, like he immediately done a 180 after in 2016 after he won. Mm-hmm. You know, we're not going to go after Hillary Clinton. You know, after they had been chanting to at his rallies. You know, so yeah, it goes to show though that to me it's the whole guilty conscience thing where they know what they did to him and that now that he's back in power again, they don't want to jeopardize him. The opportunity that he could throw it back at them. Yeah.
Well, the thing that I most look forward to with Trump is foreign policy issues.
Yeah.
I'm opposed to tariffs, but I think that that's a better pathway than income taxes and so on.
Yeah.
Like it's interesting that he looked at history and discovered that through a majority of the existence of the republic, that the government was funded by tariffs.
Yeah.
Instead of income taxes. Yeah. But with the foreign policy, including the trade wars and so forth, what I appreciate about Trump and the reason that I'm hopeful about these things, even though I think that he's making some threats that I don't approve of, is that Trump thinks that everything is a negotiation. And we haven't had any negotiation in this country for the last 4 years. And so at the very least, we have a person that is now the chief diplomat of the United States, essentially.
Yeah. Well, and he's out there really pushing it. I saw some clips of him, World Economic Forum yesterday?
Yeah, probably.
And I mean, my wife, I'm sitting here listening to him and I'm laughing. And my wife is like, what is so funny? And I'm like, listen to this guy. Like he's standing up there with a list of grievances and demands on these other countries. And we haven't heard that. Like there hasn't been any of that. Like it's all just been kind of go along to get along and little fluffy speeches. And Trump is up there, I mean, making demands and pushing things. Like I say, I mean, it's like, I know that this is his little phrase or not, but it is America first. He's like, look, we're the biggest in the room and we're going to show it.
Yeah.
And I mean, I don't love the idea of that, but I don't hate it either.
Yeah. I mean, I don't like the idea of using force to like get our way, just pushing people around, being the bully. I think that's what makes us a not very well respected nation in a lot of ways. I think that we've got roughly a quarter of the world that just backs us because they're afraid of us, and the rest of the world doesn't like us very much.
Yeah.
And we've done it to ourselves. It's our own activities in the world that have done this. But at the same time, while I don't like him, just like swinging for the fences on everything, at least I don't see him as somebody that is intransigent.
Well, and that is going to let these other countries push us around.
Yeah. But like I said, I think that he sees it as like, this is the opening move of a negotiation.
Yeah. And
this is what I'm demanding, but this isn't the final. Like,
yeah,
this is a starting point.
This is the opening waylay.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what I took from him speaking at the Economic Forum. Like, I mean, he's swinging for the fences. Like, everything was this is what y'all have done to us and this is what we're going to do back type deal, But I do think you're right. Like, I mean, these opening, few weeks is going to be pushing hard, and then there'll be negotiations, and he's done this. He did that all through his first presidency.
Yeah,
is you start off hard and then you find somewhere in the middle to land.
Almost made peace with North Korea doing that.
With just that, exactly. Yeah. So,
I'd like to see him pick that up again. That would be nice.
I feel like he will. I mean, all of these things are going to come back around again.
Yeah,
so.
He's shifting some of the, I don't know, I guess if people are familiar with the term Overton window, which is essentially the range of opinion that is reasonable to discuss in public.
Yeah.
Like, okay, we joke about the Overton window in terms of Libertarian Party economics stuff. Like, okay, so the Overton window is whether your tax rate should be 31% or 38%. That's the range that you're allowed to express in public.
Yeah, that's your Mitt Romney versus Barack Obama.
Yeah.
Like, this is what we're arguing about, and this is the parameters we're going to argue about it in.
Yeah, and we talk about this because so many of the libertarian opinions are outside of that Overton window. Yeah. Like, we don't think there should be taxation at all. Yeah. Like, why isn't this part of the conversation? Because it's outside the Overton window. Yeah. So I think that he's stretching the Overton window with some of the moves that he's making. He's changing the frame of reference for the conversations.
Yeah.
And that's encouraging.
Well, it is, and it's, even though we're libertarians and not Republicans, it's still good for libertarians to have somebody in office that's moving that window around. Mm-hmm. And when it comes to Trump, he's moving it all over the place.
Yeah.
So
I guess we should talk about some of these executive orders. Unfortunately, I haven't had the time to read as much about this as I would like. Yeah. So I've only got a couple of them.
So many,
really, that I can talk about with any information.
Yeah.
But okay, so first off is the birthright citizenship thing. And so this is an important move. I don't think he has the power to do this.
Yeah, you'd be in the majority, and not a lot of, even people, I've heard a lot of people on the right make the argument that this is just outside of his scope.
Yeah. And honestly, I don't think that it's as much of a problem as that it should, as it's being made out to be, in terms of like just the right, the birthright citizenship, right?
Yeah.
What, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't think that it's as much of a problem as many believe. I see where it has some problems, but so the birthright citizenship was established with the 14th Amendment after the end of the Civil War. The purpose of it was to make all of the former slaves citizens of the U.S.
Okay.
All right. It was to preempt any move to like prevent them having citizenship rights, essentially.
Okay.
So that was the purpose of it, but and maybe that would be what to attack it really if they were going to try and do this. Like this was set for a very specific purpose. That purpose isn't relevant anymore.
Yeah.
So this doesn't have meaning in the modern world and it should be revised.
Yeah.
Okay. It's still, however, an amendment to the Constitution that was ratified and
which means it has to be what do they call that?
Repealed.
Repealed. Okay. Yeah. Okay.
Like prohibition.
Yeah.
Once it was there, they had to go through the same process to repeal the prohibition.
Yeah. Which is the reason that we haven't in fact, prohibition was one of the last big ones to go through the Constitution. I mean, that marijuana isn't illegal because of
I see what you mean. Yeah.
As far as like laws of that type of nature.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, that's just not how we do it anymore.
Yeah. Well, Biden just declared that the Equal Rights Amendment is now an established amendment of the Constitution.
That doesn't mean it is.
Yeah. I mean, it was ratified by enough states, but outside of the time frame that it was given.
Oh, was it? Okay.
Yeah.
I wasn't aware of that. Okay.
Yeah. It was given a particular time frame for ratification, and it wasn't ratified by enough states during that time.
Gotcha.
Some states have switched their vote, so to speak.
Yeah.
Since then,
So
so Biden
like
just said, okay, well now it's an amendment to the Constitution, but that's not. I mean, it was set to have a sunset.
Yeah.
For ratification, and that sunset passed, and it wasn't ratified by then. So.
Yeah, it seems like you would have to like go back and like restart that process, right?
Yes.
Which shouldn't be that difficult to do, right? To do it right?
No, I mean, they could absolutely start it over again. The problem is that it wouldn't pass, probably.
Oh, okay. Still?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I don't know. I think that if they thought it would pass, they would just try to do that.
I mean, that would be the logical thing, but I just know politics don't work logically.
Yeah, that thing's dangerous too. We'll have to talk about that some other time.
All right.
But anyway, what they're trying to attack on this the birthright citizenship clause of the 14th Amendment is that it says it includes a stipulation that the people who have birthright citizenship have to be subject to the jurisdiction of the United States.
Okay.
And they're making the case that immigrants who entered illegally are not subject to the jurisdiction of the United States. But that's a ridiculous argument.
Yeah.
Because if they weren't subject to the jurisdiction of the United States, they couldn't be arrested for illegal immigration.
Right. Yeah, they're not.
Right. They're not subject to the laws of the United States if they're not subject to the jurisdiction of the United States. So therefore they can't be illegal immigrants if they're not subject to the jurisdiction of the United States. It's a meaningless term then.
Yeah.
It's like a null value. That phrase was put in for essentially for diplomats.
Oh, okay.
Who aren't subject to the laws of the United States. They're subject to the laws of their home country.
Yeah.
So that's why it's there. It's about diplomatic immunity.
Okay.
It's not about people who...
we don't want a bunch of diplomats coming over here and having babies.
I mean, yeah, right. The truth is that even visitors to the United States are subject to the jurisdiction of the United States.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, that's...
Whether they entered legally or illegally, like people here are subject to the jurisdiction of the United States unless there's been some special dispensation, such as in the case of ambassadors. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't think that that's going to fly. It's just an interesting approach to take, especially since you're trying to make a case that they can be deported or arrested or whatever, to say that, well, the reason is because they're not subject to the jurisdiction of the United States. Well, then they're not subject to any of this.
Right.
Like, I don't know. It seems silly to me.
Yeah.
It's self-contradictory.
Yeah.
But that's, I mean, this is a move that has some popularity. Most of Europe does not have birthright citizenship.
Really?
Most of the Western Hemisphere does, though, I think.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I think that it's something that's valuable in our country. I like that people can come here and set down roots and stay.
Yeah.
I mean, I understand that it's being used in a kind of fraudulent way.
Yeah.
But I don't think eliminating birthright citizenship is the answer.
Yeah. The wall is the answer.
Well, maybe.
Can't hurt.
I think the answer is to just stop giving away all of our wealth to everybody else.
Well, now you're talking about real solutions.
Well, isn't that what we're supposed to do on this podcast?
Sometimes.
I mean, the truth is that if we didn't have a huge welfare state that supported these people with our tax money,
yeah, it wouldn't be a big deal if they came or not.
Yeah, exactly. They either succeed and they stay, in which case they're building wealth in this country and they're productive members of the citizenry or the community of the United States.
Yeah.
Or they don't and they go home.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is what used to happen.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's the idea of this country, but that's not the reality anymore.
Mm-hmm. So. I mean, one of the biggest problems is that people think that it's a way of laborers limiting competition.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's really what a lot of the immigration legislation is about. It's about making sure that if you're a lazy American, that you don't have to compete with a not lazy Mexican.
Yeah.
For your job.
Yeah.
Which I think is ridiculous. Which kind of brings us around to the other thing. And I don't know a whole lot about this executive order, but the elimination of the DEI requirements.
Yeah.
Within the government.
Yeah.
Is that, like, Trump said that bad word that Heinlein had apparently talked about too, the meritocracy.
The meritocracy, yeah.
Oh man, we can't have a meritocracy. Why can't we have a meritocracy?
Why is that not? That should be the goal.
Yeah, I don't know how.
I want the best person in the best position.
Yeah.
I want the best pilot flying my plane or running my firefighters or whatever it is. Like, I want the most qualified person there.
That's an interesting point, because we did spend a lot of time. I made it a point not to talk about that issue with the California wildfires.
Yeah. But
last
it's there.
episode, because I wanted to talk about the ecology and the climate change stuff, and that it was just a general failure of government.
Yeah.
In one of the few things that, if you think that government has a role, this might be it.
This would be the place. Yep.
But the people in the political level of positions within California fire fighting, it's like more than half of them are lesbian. This is not representative.
No, in no way.
It's beyond representative. And it might suggest that those people got their jobs because of what they are, not who they are.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think that this is actually like a real problem with the idea of DEI in the first place, is that what you do is you undermine trust in people in positions of power, because you start to question whether they got, or in any position really.
Yeah.
Because you start to question if they got that job because they're skilled and competent and they're the best person for that job, or if they got that job because of some cultural, like something that they checked on their employment.
Yeah, and especially when it comes to positions of leadership, and I'm not talking about necessarily in government so much, but even whether you're managing a business or whatever it is, if you're in a leadership position, people need to have faith that you got there because you know what you're doing, and that this is a person that I'm wise to follow because they know what's up. And this just erodes all faith in that.
Yeah. Especially if there's some kind of minority. And if you're trying to fix problems between white people and minorities, This doesn't help.
No, and it devalues the minorities that make it there.
Yes.
And that's where I think that a lot of this is missed. Is, like I say, if that person truly did earn that position, then they're elite in their what they do.
Yeah.
And that's something to be proud of. But it's not whenever you just get appointed to it because you check a box.
Yeah. I think that and I don't know, we made the case last time that it wouldn't have mattered which political party was in power. It wouldn't have mattered who was in these positions. I mean, the truth is that the Republicans and the Democrats have been kind of following the same pathway in terms of fire mitigation in California.
Yeah.
But the DEI thing is still an issue, especially when you have a catastrophe like this and people are looking at wow, 4 of the 5 top positions in LA Fire Department are held by women and 3 of them are lesbians, or whatever.
Yeah.
I don't remember exactly how
but
it
it's
works
something
out,
ridiculous. Yeah. Every time somebody walks to a podium, it's like, oh, this doesn't look like a person that should be here.
Yeah.
I'm just saying.
Yeah, even when they should.
Yeah, even when they exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So that's the problem with this. I don't understand. I don't know what could be more fair than a meritocracy.
Yeah, you want the best people in the best positions. Like I say. So
I just
and my understanding of this executive order is that all of these agencies, and this is my understanding of it, and I could be wrong, but my understanding is all of these different federal positions and agencies have people in there specifically doing DEI work.
Yeah.
And that this is supposed to, for one, identify who those people are in those agencies and then get rid of them.
Yeah.
Which
that would be nice. That's hard to do, though.
I was fixing to say, which is going to be tough because what they're going to do is all of these agencies right now are scrambling to re-identify people and to shuffle and hide.
It won't get rid of the process either. Like they'll continue to do things their way. They'll just title it differently.
But yeah, and that's exactly what's going on right now. Yeah. And at least that's my understanding of it, like I say.
Well, that's exactly what I would expect of government.
Well, yeah, absolutely.
Now the other part of that is that Trump's encouraging major businesses to take the same kind of steps.
Yeah.
Well, and a lot of them already are, I think. Well, that's just it. Yeah. This is another one of those examples of the culture has already moved, the businesses are shifting their processes, and then the government makes a statement and tries to claim credit.
Right. Exactly. So it is, just to kind of mention it real quick, I mean, talking about Trump winning the presidency, like this is a big pendulum shift. Like, I mean, the culture has kind of turned on a dime here, whether it's Zuckerberg at Facebook or all of these companies doing away with DEI, like all of this stuff is a big shift.
Yeah.
And it's funny because it's fun right now to watch everything kind of shift back to what we would consider more normal, but you just know it's going to shift the other way 5 or 6 years from now, 10 years from now.
This is kind of apropos of nothing, but did you see all the uproar about Elon Musk's "My heart goes out," you know, et cetera?
Well, and so did you see all the other pictures of all of the other Democrat politicians doing the exact same thing?
No.
Oh, they're everywhere. Like there's whole big things of them all doing the exact same thing, but it never came up when they did it.
Yeah. Well,
this guy's been labeled the enemy.
I wish I had pulled the clip. Like Bridget Phetasy, who's a comedian.
Yeah.
She had like the best take on this, which is just like, this guy is an autist. He doesn't know how to control his body in a normal way. This is just him being awkward and weird. Like he does this all the time. We were just talking about a few weeks ago, like him awkwardly dancing and jumping on stage. Well, this is just another one of those things.
Yeah, exactly.
Like he's just being weird because he's weird.
Well, and he got excited and, you know. Right?
He just doesn't know how to control his body in a way that, which some of it's probably a little bit unfair, but on the whole, I thought that her commentary was very funny and
accurate.
Yeah.
Right.
I just,
I mean, I thought it just went to show we never did get the Nazis out of going to the moon.
yeah. Well, I just thought it came back around to it took them, it took the left zero time to go back to the everybody I don't like as a Nazi.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, yeah.
And that's just sad.
It's just their go-to, man. You can't
But
help
it didn't work, and it hasn't worked for a long time. And why haven't they figured this out yet? They have used that word so much that it has no meaning.
Because it's not time to swing the other way yet. They'll figure it out in 5, 6, 10 years, and then the pendulum will swing back to the left again once they figure it out. But they ain't there yet.
What do you mean? Once they figure what out?
That calling everybody a Nazi don't work.
They'll just find a new word?
Yeah. Well, I mean, maybe. Or maybe they'll actually... I still root for the left to be good.
Yeah.
So, maybe they'll figure out where they're going wrong here and correct course.
Yeah, there's aspects of the left that I really appreciate, and they're not doing any of them right now.
Well, no, but...
They are the cancel culture. They are the ones calling everybody's names. They're the ones trying to shut down speech. They're the ones trying to go to war with everybody.
Yeah. They're on the wrong side of every issue. And it's crazy because they're all issues that at one point they were on the right side of. Or the good side, I should say the good side, because I don't mean right and left.
The correct side.
The correct side, yeah. There was a time where they were on the correct side of these issues, and eventually they will find their way back. And then, like I say, then the pendulum shifts back again. So,
well, we may as well close out talking about the executive order that most illustrates how wrong the left is in choosing their battles.
Okay.
Which is the women are women
so
executive order.
Here's the thing I got to say about that. I didn't listen to all of the acceptance speech, inauguration speech, but I listened to some of it. I tried to catch as much as I was busy when it was on. It was just a thing.
Yeah.
And I wasn't going back to re-listen to it. But I caught some of it. But one of the moments that stood out to me was when Trump stood up and was like, so where the federal government is going to recognize men are men and women are women. There are two genders, and that's all. And the crowd goes wild.
Yeah.
And all I could think as I heard it, I was like, imagine if Bill Clinton had said that in his inauguration speech.
People would have gone wild.
You think so?
Well,
I think they would have been like, so we're just up here like,
yeah, what are you talking about?
Yeah, exactly.
Who's questioning this?
Yeah, nobody's questioning this.
Yeah,
like this is
okay. I see what you mean.
Like it boggled my mind that of course it deserves in this climate of praise because obviously it's correct.
Yeah, I don't know that it does because the reason that the left lost so much on this issue is because what Trump said is the mainstream left too.
Yeah. Well,
I mean, the left is the Democrats using this as an issue to campaign on or whatever are trying to appeal to a very, very small group of people.
Yeah.
Even within their own base.
Yeah. Exactly.
And that's kind of the problem that they're having with this.
Yeah, but that's what makes it such a good campaign issue for Trump. It's because that's a very easy way for him to pull liberals.
Well, and what this really came down to was government documentation, identification stuff.
Yeah.
Like I don't remember having seen this in it, but I was trying to think like what government identification stuff have I had to fill out in the last few years.
Yeah.
I can't think of anything.
I haven't had to do any in a while.
I
try to avoid that type of thing as much as I can.
Oh yeah, I saw screenshots that were purportedly people clicking on the drop down for gender identity on government documentation stuff that had like 100 and some options. And like the options that were on screen in this particular screenshot, I was like, what the hell?
Yeah, right.
And this, it seems like this executive order, from what I've read and heard about it, it was actually like really well constructed.
Yeah.
That it is drawing a very discrete line I mean, discrete as in there are now two sides of this very clearly, not discrete as in you can barely see it.
Yeah.
Between gender identity and just like sex that goes on to government identification and documents.
Yeah.
So you can't change the sex on your passport on a whim.
Yeah.
Like if these are now I'm opposed to generally to identification documents and so forth. But if you're going to have them, the purpose is to identify accurately.
Right.
And biology is a thing. And if you can just change sex whenever you feel like it, then it doesn't have any value on any of these documents.
Yeah. Exactly.
Like it doesn't tell anybody anything. So it just said, and it does make allowances for some of the weird, like legitimate biological issues, like what we call intersex now. They used to be hermaphroditic and things like that.
Yeah.
But it just says that the sex that you enter on government identification documents or government documents is going to be the immutable biological characteristic.
Yeah. Seems fair to me.
And this isn't supposed to impugn on any identities or anything else.
Yeah, exactly.
Like you can call yourself whatever you want, but on government documents, when we ask this question,
you're going to get two options.
Yeah,
and
we're talking about
you to pick
one of
them.
these two things, and we're talking about the biologically accurate one.
Yeah, exactly.
The one that doesn't change when you feel like it.
Depending on how you feel today.
Yeah. So that's interesting, but like, man, and it uses that. Now, this is another one of those things that I don't like government stepping in there and telling sports how they're supposed to run themselves.
Yeah.
And things like that. But that is another part of it.
Yeah.
And the unfortunate truth right now is that it's kind of necessary.
Well, that's the unfortunate part. It is necessary.
I still don't approve of it. I think that it'll work. The market would work it out in the long run.
Yeah.
I just want to be clear about that. But it just seems absurd that it should be necessary. That's really what it brings up. It just seems absurd that it should be necessary to say, yeah, we can't have biological men competing in women's sports. That's why we made women's sports.
Right. They have a whole category.
If there wasn't a reason for that, then we would just have the sport and it wouldn't be gendered.
Yeah.
I don't know. This is such a ridiculous thing. I can't believe it's an argument.
Yeah. It's insane.
But there are people up in arms about this, and it's...
Yeah, but there's not as many of them as... I mean, that's a vocal minority.
Well, go to TikTok.
No, well, exactly. That's where they're all at.
Yeah.
And they should be thanking Trump for saving that.
I feel bad for the people that think that this is some kind of real shift that's going to impact their lives in a significant way.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's just age, maybe. It might just be age.
Yeah.
But particularly now, Trump's already been president for 4 years. How much did it really change your life?
Yeah, exactly. Well, for a lot of leftists, it did. I mean, they were screaming a lot, man.
Yeah, but really their life didn't change that much. I mean, he didn't have that big an impact except psychologically. He didn't actually do anything to them.
Except the fact that he just lives rent-free in their head.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's its own problem.
Yeah, it is.
If you're in psychology right now, you could probably make a fairly lucrative career just treating people with Trump derangement syndrome. That might make it into the next, what is it? DX9 or whatever. Yeah. The next diagnosis manual.
Disorders.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it deserves to be there because there's a lot of it out there.
I mean, there's not so much this time as there was last time.
No, there's not.
And that's good. But the people that are still on that train, they're never getting off.
They're just lost. I mean, they're just lost.
Yeah. I feel bad for them. This is I don't know how you allow yourself to get spun up in this way. And I said, I think age has something to do with it because we've seen a lot of different presidents, left and right.
Yeah.
And we have come to realize that None of them really change our life that much.
No, exactly.
They all do terrible things. They all do stupid things, but
Yeah.
I mean, but the truth is that they don't, like, my actual day-to-day is not really affected by the president.
No.
And maybe that's just my privilege. But I don't think so.
It's your burden to bear.
I don't think so. Yeah. I definitely don't feel bad about it.
Yeah.
I would like to see some changes too, but I just don't think. Stop listening to the media.
Yeah, the media is pretty.
We should talk a little bit about the TikTok ban.
Okay.
I don't have a whole lot to say about this. I just have my perspective on this.
Okay.
Which, once again, you got Trump in there. He's just trying to make a deal.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think it's obscene for a country that calls itself a free nation.
Yeah.
To try and dictate who is going to run a company.
Yeah.
Or whether that company can do business here.
Yeah.
I think
kind of defeats the purpose of free country.
Yeah. I think that's ridiculous. And I don't care what China's doing.
Yeah.
Because I'm not trying to be like China.
Yeah.
And the truth is that the claims that they're making about private information, the Chinese government having access to Americans' private information, so what? What are they going to do?
Yeah.
And if you keep trying to make the claim to me...
You sound a lot like people who are all for the surveillance state right there. I'm just saying.
Yeah, but the Chinese government has no jurisdiction over me.
Not until they win the war.
Like, I am not subject to Chinese jurisdiction.
Oh.
So, yeah, until they win the war. That's a separate problem. But our own government has access to all this information.
Yeah.
FBI had offices in Facebook.
Oh, yeah.
All of the American companies are stealing this information too. And the fact of the matter is that I am far less concerned about Facebook having this information or the Chinese government from having this information. Yeah. I'm far less concerned about that than the American government having access to this information.
Yeah.
And the case that they're making that, they have access to this private information that they can use as blackmail in the future if you have a government job. Anything that was that bad, you wouldn't have gotten that government job because they already know it and they would have rejected you for it. If it was something that was so bad that they could really blackmail you on it, you'd have never gotten the government job.
Yeah.
Unless the Chinese government has access to more of your information than the American government it does. And I promise you that's not true.
Yeah, because they've only got access through one app.
Yeah. Not every single thing that you do on the internet.
Yeah, exactly.
I think that the whole thing is absurd. And it shouldn't even be a question in a free country. But what it's really about, I think, is that the TikTok does what it does better than any American company that's trying to do the same thing.
Well, that's where it boils down to, because the truth is this is just the U.S. companies lobbying to government again to get rid of my competition, because we can, and we've tried. Like I've had tons of these little video app things that do more or less the same thing as TikTok, and they've all failed. They're all over my phone because I never deleted them. We just don't use them.
Yeah.
And they're not as good. They don't work. I mean, they don't work the same way that TikTok does.
Yeah.
And a lot of it with TikTok is as simple as TikTok just sends you what you like.
Yeah.
You like cooking videos? We got cooking videos, and that's what you're going to see in your feed. Every now and then we'll throw a little something else in there to see if you're going to bite on it, but they're just feeding you what you like.
Yeah.
And Facebook and these other apps don't do that.
Well, Facebook and Twitter and these, they're trying to feed you stuff to get you riled up.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, the idea is that, like, anger keeps your attention better than entertainment.
Yeah.
But I think TikTok has kind of proven that's not true.
Yeah. Well, and that's exactly what it's proven.
Yeah.
TikTok is really good, and I don't know how they do it. What I don't understand about what TikTok does is, how does it know what videos you like? They don't use a hashtag system or anything like that.
It's how much time you spend on it.
Yeah, but how does it know? Just how it knows what's in the video? I guess. I mean, I guess AI can do some crazy stuff.
Yeah, I mean that's true. I don't know.
I mean, I don't know.
Chinese labor is cheap. They might have a whole bunch of people in a room just like identifying
videos and categorizing them and whatnot. I mean, I've wondered that. Like, I don't know, and I don't know enough about how apps and stuff work. I mean, there may be a really simple way that they do this behind the scenes, but I do wonder if it's not like what you just suggested, that there's a whole like facility building of people that are just categorizing TikTok apps.
Yeah, I have no idea, but I mean, I'm not on TikTok, so
I'm on it very sparsely. The only time I'm on it is when I get sent a video, which is a lot.
I got a friend at work that practically lives on TikTok.
Yeah, I got a wife and 2 kids. So.
And that's what he says. He is like, man, it's just entertaining.
Yeah, exactly.
Like what I like, it just keeps feeding that to me. It is good at feeding you what is entertaining you.
Exactly.
And the other thing is that TikTok was built. I think this is the real big issue that the American companies have. Is that like they're trying to do the influencer thing? You know, they're trying to use their apps in some way to push products on you.
Yeah.
And that is what TikTok was designed to do.
Yeah.
And it's good at it.
Oh yeah. Yeah, it definitely does it.
And the American companies, they can't compete.
Yeah.
In the same space.
Yeah.
It's just not as good. Facebook, Twitter, whatever, Instagram, all those things, they're just not as good at feeding you products and funneling you into some place where you're buying something.
Yeah. Oh yeah, because TikTok Shop does well.
Yeah.
Trust me, I know not because I'm on the app, because I live in the house with a bunch of females.
Yeah. Just
saying. They're all over TikTok.
Teenage girls have gotten their credit cards taken away.
Again. Before we get out of here, I do want to mention the pardon of Ross Ulbricht.
Yeah. Oh, yes. Yes. Thank you.
That's very big news. Very I don't know. It's just good to see, man. Like the picture of him coming out of there with his little plant just warmed my heart.
Yeah. Well, Trump kept his word.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that guy didn't deserve to still be in prison.
Yeah.
I mean, for those who don't know, he was the creator of the Silk Road website, which created a secure, anonymous clearinghouse essentially for all kinds of private transactions.
Yeah.
Illegal activity took place on the site.
Yeah.
Because it is a secure, anonymous platform for transactions.
Yeah.
For private transactions. But Ross didn't participate in any of the crimes that were I mean, as far as we know, I bet the guy smokes weed, but whatever.
Yeah. Well, he wasn't even in the country when they caught him, though, was he?
I don't remember now.
I forget where they caught him.
It's been a long time.
Yeah. I want to say
it's been a long time since we drove to that Libertarian convention and listened to that
whole thing. That was so good.
Yeah, it was.
I swear they busted him overseas, but I could be wrong about that. He could have been in the U.S. I don't remember now.
Yeah. And there seems to have been a lot of corruption on the law enforcement side. Like if you dig into it, it's a crazy story, but the guy got 2 life sentences for setting up an independent.
2 life sentences in 40 years.
My mistake.
Just saying.
2 life sentences plus 2.5 life sentences.
Yeah.
For setting up an independent platform for private individuals to make mutually agreed upon transactions.
Yeah. Yeah. Right.
So
he should be a hero.
Yeah. So Trump pardoned him. He promised the Libertarian Party that he would, and he did. And apparently there's still libertarians that are not satisfied with this. I'm kind of blown away. Like, this is the most impact we've had on an administration ever, I think.
Yeah. I mean, you got to take it as a win.
Yeah, and I can't imagine that you would prefer... All right, any libertarians out there that are still not happy with this arrangement, that still think that it was a mistake for the Libertarian Party to offer some support to Donald Trump, who was the only candidate that would talk to them, by the way.
Yeah.
I just have to ask you, would you rather that Ross still be in prison and Trump not be in office.
Yeah. That's not a world I want to live in for either of
I
those
mean, I would
things.
rather have Trump in office and Ross free. And I don't know how, as a libertarian, you look at it any other way, because there's one more free man that didn't deserve to be imprisoned.
Yep. Absolutely.
And I think that the Libertarian Party itself had a big impact on that decision. And I think that that's the most powerful thing that we've ever done in American politics.
Without reaching out. And by the way, and this seems to have been lost in some of the conversations, at least from what I've seen, unless I'm just getting this wrong. But my understanding is that the Libertarian Party, before Trump came, voted on what they wanted our little pitch to be.
Yes. Yeah.
And this seems to have been lost, because a lot of people are like, well, this isn't the most important. I was like, or, this isn't something we should hang our hat on, or that type of thing. It's like, well, at the time, the members of the party thought it was.
Yeah.
Because we voted on that, and that was the pitch. That was the thing that we told Angela we wanted. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, and we got it,
Yeah.
And that that does not happen without the Libertarian Party, and with Angela in particular, like putting this all together.
Yeah. And it doesn't happen without Trump, frankly.
Well, it doesn't happen without Trump. True, because
any other Republican candidate
would not have came. You're absolutely right. I mean, there is definitely some credit there for him to at least come listen to us and and follow through with what he promised us.
Yeah, even with the reception that he got.
Yeah, because exactly, he could have very easily left that and been like, these people are lost. I can't work with them.
Yeah.
And that'd been the last of it. Mm-hmm. But it wasn't. I mean, he credited in his tweet, which or I say tweet, but it was a Truth Social post, which I posted to the Liberty Mike page. I mean, he credits the Libertarian Party and the Libertarians for bringing this to light to him.
Yeah.
So I mean, I just don't see how it's not a win.
Yeah, good for us and good for him.
Absolutely.
That's a good place to end.
I think so.
It was very positive.
Yeah.
We don't get to end on a positive
note. We don't get to do
often.
that a lot, so I'm very happy.
I just made it negative. Oh well. Yeah. So we got something. We got something out of an administration for the first time, I think, ever.
Yeah. Got to take that.
Mm-hmm. So. Okay. Well. We'll be back next week.
As long as we don't get snowed in.
Well, yeah.
I made that prediction last week.
Liberty Larry's afraid of ice.
Yeah, a little bit. I live in the South. We're not supposed to deal with this.
Yeah. I think your position is more or less the same as mine. Like, I lived in Atlanta for a long time, for like a decade. And you get ice storms once or twice a year.
Yeah.
In Atlanta. And so I'm confident in my driving ability, my skill on ice. It's everybody else that I'm worried about.
Exactly. That is absolutely my fear. Is I know how to operate that motor vehicle, but that guy coming at me, I don't know.
I've driven a 2.5-ton ambulance on ice roads.
Yeah.
And sometimes, because I have a tiny little car.
Yeah.
There are times that I wish I had a heavier car
right.
driving on ice, because like the heavier it is, you just feel like you get more traction.
Yeah.
That Deuce and a Half, it had 6 tires on the ground, so
a lot more grip in there.
The problem is that you also have a momentum issue,
right? Which is why you take it slow.
Yeah, but man, I'm glad that we had these last few days. It was nice. It was nice to see this much snow. It was so pretty, and we just don't get it that much. But over the next few decades, we'll see.
We'll see.
We'll see. This is again the problem with climate change. We get a big snowstorm, it's because of climate change.
Yeah.
If we'd got no snowstorm,
because of climate change.
It's because of climate change. Climate change is the excuse for everything.
Well, that's how they won, and that's by changing the term, because for the longest time when I was growing up, it was global warming.
Yeah.
But that one...
Before that, it was global cooling.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you got they finally put it together. It's like, oh, we just need to go with a more blanket term.
Yeah, they had to omit the Dust Bowl era from their timeline to give you that hockey stick graph.
Really?
Because like the coldest period in recorded American history is during the Dust Bowl era.
Really?
Yeah, I think it's like the 1930s or
Wow. Yeah.
So anyway, the whole thing's a mess. It's a scam. They're just trying to set up a central government, because how else can you organize every nation in the world to fight climate change that affects us all without some supranational organization to do it?
Yeah. Well, I got to mention that since you brought it up, and I just thought about it. So Trump did exit from the WHO and the Paris Climate Agreement.
Yeah, this is the second time he's left the Paris Climate Agreement, isn't it?
Well, it's funny that the same day he left the Paris Climate Agreement is the same day we got snow. I'm not saying there's a coincidence. I'm just saying...
You are saying there's a coincidence.
I'm saying it is I'm not...
It's just a coincidence.
It's just a coincidence, I'm sure.
I think not.
Exactly.
Okay.
There are no coincidences.
Lots of coincidences. Lots and lots of coincidences.
Well...
That's why the word exists.
Okay.
Okay. So we expect to be back next week unless climate change happens.
Yeah.
And but in the meantime, you can follow us on Facebook. You can subscribe on iTunes, YouTube, Podbean. Like and share, comment, subscribe. You can always email me at michael@thelibertymike.com. Love to hear from you. And I got fewer arguments about climate change in the last week than I expected.
Oh, yeah. Thought you were going to get
You know who
around.
you are.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Anyway, yeah, we'll be back next week when we finally get this right. And in the meantime, try to stay free.
Life short, live free.
Ciao.
Later.